If you're familiar with Splatoon 3, you're likely aware that there are two main game modes present, those being regular battle, or just called Turf War, and you've got Anarchy Battle, both open and series. But you've likely also noticed that while Turf War queues can be pretty short, Anarchy queues can be very long at times, meaning at least twice as long, if not more, than Turf War. Now, you're thinking to yourself, well, why is that the case? Why are anarchy queues way longer? And this is a question I've always pondered myself ever since the Splatfest, or even before the Splatfest for that matter. And I think I have my reasons for this, that other people might have, so let's delve into this. Now, you're thinking to yourself, well, isn't it obvious? More people play Turf War than Anarchy. And that is true, but you need to know why that is the actual case, which is the topic that is going to focus the main focus for this video, as that's the factor in the queue times being really long in Anarchy. Of course, there are the obvious reasons, like Splatfest and the need to unlock Anarchy at level 10, but I'm going to focus on more consistent reasons, as those two that I just mentioned aren't exactly very consistent reasons. So, we're going to describe why people, even after unlocking Anarchy, can still continue to play Turf War. So, and I have at least 3 reasons for why this is the case, so let's go through them. Now, the first reason is pretty obvious, and that is, well, some people just do not feel like they want to play Anarchy, and it makes sense why, because, well, Anarchy is pretty much a ranked game mode, and it's not hard to find out why, because, well, there's various ranks, like the same with other games, like Counter-Strike 2 and Quake Champions, all that. And ranked game modes overall have sort of a stigma by some people, and, well, those people want a more chill experience for their games. And especially Splatoon 3, and, well, that's what Turf War offers. It offers a pretty chill experience, because, well, and since their overall goal in Turf War is, well, inking the ground, it pretty much means you can effectively minimize combat in Turf War. Of course, that's still possible in Anarchy, but there are still instances where you more or less have to fight. I mean, because, all the objectives still involve fights in some form, but more so than a Turf War. So overall, Turf War is more a mode to just mess around in and do whatever you want. And of course, that's the same thing true with other game modes. I mean, you've got TF2, where you have the casual game mode, which you play purely to play, the actual game. But then you've got community servers, which can let you just kind of dick around and stuff, for like 24/7 servers from like 2Fort, or even trade servers. Of course, it still can be vice versa for both. I mean, there's still community servers like Castaway if you want to still play actual TF2, just not in the same way. Because, Castaway has the rebounds, reverted weapons, so. And even servers like Class Wars and Versus Saxon Hill also exist. Now we have reason number 2, and it's all about the weapons, and there's 2 parts for this. Now, the first part is, well, you would want to play Turf War to learn a new weapon. Because, well, when you do a new weapon, if you're mostly familiar with Anarchy, then, well, you would be tempted to play with that new weapon in Anarchy, and I've done that before on some occasions. I mean, I tested the Custom Blaster in Anarchy, but obviously, because you don't have much knowledge, it means you may not really play super well with that weapon at first. So, it's a better option to play in Turf War, so you can learn how the weapon works, understand what you're supposed to do, and again, since in Turf War you can effectively do whatever you want, there's more fun factor involved and all that, there's less punishment, it means it's easier to learn a weapon there than to learn it in Anarchy. And the second part about this is that some weapons in Turf War just work better there than in Anarchy, and some weapons are pretty obvious. I mean, the Aerospray RG is the biggest example of this to me, because, well, and just Aerospray in general, not just the RG, and it's easy to tell why that's the case, because, well, Aerospray doesn't have good range and does poor damage, but it paints pretty well and still shoots fast, so not only can you regain any lost turf, but then that also means you can refill your special really easily, and that's especially true with the RG because that means you can spam Booyah Bombs and just ruin people's days. Which is, the main complaint I have with the RG. That's why I express so much hate toward it. No offense if you use it, but you know what I'm saying. And of course, the same thing can also go the other way around. There are some weapons you might find work better in Anarchy than in Turf War. I mean, Chargers are a good example of this because they don't paint well, they more or less are there to pick off targets. So, and well, because you're probably more likely to get kills in Anarchy than Turf War, usually, then you more or less would feel like you're getting more use with Chargers in Anarchy than you would in Turf War. But again, weapons that are more effective in Anarchy can still work fine in Turf War and vice versa, but again, but you know the logic I mean by this. And that leaves us with the third reason, and that is some rotations may not end up being played by everyone. I mean, everyone has preferences on what rotations they like and don't like, so obviously everyone has different preferences on what stagers, game modes they like most. So, and for me personally, I tend to avoid Anarchy Open when I see that if there's the Eeltail Alley stage, because I totally am not a big fan of that map. It's a complete shoebox, and just generally not that fun to play on. And Clan Blitz I also generally avoid. I still play it on some occasion, but I don't feel like I really have that much fun playing in Clan Blitz than the other modes like Rainmaker, Splatoons, and Tower Control. Though, um, even if you're in a bad rotation in Open, you still have the other modes to play, like Anarchy series. Although stakes for series might still be higher. Well, and dude's videos on Anarchy series do prove that. Check them out. I'll give the link for those in the pinned comment if you need more proof on that. But again, the point is, yeah, some rotations are not so great, and well, in that case, you'd be better off playing other modes, and especially Turf War. So, in summary, people end up playing. Turf War queues are way faster because more people tend to play Turf War there more often. Because, well, those people aim for a more chill experience, or to practice a new weapon, or using a weapon that more or less works better in Turf War, or even to combat against crappy rotations. I mean, stages that aren't so good, or game modes that you may not like. So yeah, those are pretty much the main reasons that I believe are why people don't end up playing Turf War or Anarchy as much as a Turf War. Though we can also include a bonus reason this won't apply to Turf War, but this can also just contribute to Anarchy queues being slow, and that is the X Battle. Now, I should preface this by saying I have not unlocked X Battle, so I'm not gonna take all this at face value, but to look at it this way, X Battle is more or less the super competitive mode. So you may as well. So if you think Anarchy is not intense enough, well, you can step into X Battle and fight against, the absolute best players. Of course, people do have negative opinions on X Battle, though some people may still say that queue times in X are better than in Anarchy. But again, I've not played X Battle, so I cannot verify. If you believe that's the case, then just let me know in the comments, and I'll probably think you're right. And with all that, that pretty much wraps up this video. If you found it informative, then like the video, share it around with other people, subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and thanks for watching.